Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing, and follow us on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story yourself you'd like to share? Just send us an email, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. I'd also invite you to pick up my new memoir on Amazon, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget. It takes you through all of my medical journey, along with my introduction into radio for all those years. And you'll get some behind-the-scenes stories, also a little bit of my comedy career. It's all in there. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, now available on Amazon. Welcome to episode 85, where this week we meet Wayne Adam Greer, a husband, father, grandfather, pastor, and author who thought he just had a bad cold. But that cough turned out to be congestive heart failure. After months of struggle, years of faith, and one life-saving heart transplant, Wayne's story reminds us that hope is never lost, and every heartbeat truly is a gift. We'll meet Wayne Adam Greer coming in next. Want to welcome Wayne Adam Greer to the podcast, and welcome aboard. But before we get started and get into your transplant story, why don't you tell the audience just a little bit about you?
Well, hi. Thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to it, to speaking with you and sharing with the world my story. So I'm 60 years old, live in Katy, Texas, and married, 2 adult children, 8 grandchildren. Transplant was 3 years ago, and I own and operate a couple home service businesses and a coaching business, and I'm an author, and just living my life the best I can.
Sounds like you're doing pretty good. Now, your transplant story, because every story has a beginning. Thank goodness you don't have an ending yet. I appreciate that. So let's start from the beginning. Where did it all begin for you?
Where did it all begin? So it actually started in 2005. I had just turned 40, caught a cold, ignored it, and it lasted for about a month, and then it turned into bronchitis. And then I couldn't shake it, so I thought I'll just go to the ER if I got pneumonia, and we'll just get fixed and get back on with life. And so when I went down to the ER, I thought it was something so simple. I didn't even take anybody with me. I didn't take my wife. I just say, I'll be back, And they were not happy with the results. They did some early testing and trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and came into the room and told me that I was in trouble, that it wasn't pneumonia. It was in congestive heart failure. So its official diagnosis, viral cardiomyopathy. The bronchitis had attacked my heart. So that's what started the whole thing. The conversations were quickly, you're dying, you're in real trouble. And so that's a shock, obviously, and not something you're thinking about. You think you're invincible, still 40, right? And so that began the journey. Within about 3 months of that, I couldn't work anymore. I was deteriorating fast, and went into get ready to get on the transplant list. Gave everything official, and so they were going to do the catheterization to just determine my levels. And I remember when I was sitting on the table getting ready for the procedure, that my cardiologist looked at me and said that he said, if we put you under, we probably won't be able to get you out of that. You're that much trouble. So we're going to have to admit you to the hospital and just begin to try to save your life in order to even save your life. That was actually the way he said it.
Oh, wow.
And so I was admitted to the hospital. This is in Albany Med Center, upstate New York. And I came in my heart rate was right around 150, even at rest. And I was bloated and just remember sitting on that in my room, put me on diuretics, of course, and everything, and just told me to just not get out of that bed. And so that was a Friday. And then by Monday, I'd lost over 40 pounds just in fluid and began to actually feel good. And they, of course, they were trying to figure things out. And so I remember that Friday afternoon, my cardiologist had brought in the head of the hospital, the head of the cardiology department in the med center for a consultation. And he came back after they all left, and he came back in himself a little bit later and said, I'm not your cardiologist, but if I was, I'd save your life. And I'm like, well, you are now. what do we got to do to make that happen? And so that began turning my everything around. He started, first thing he put in was a Swan, which is an external device to, has a catheter right into your heart and, read everything instantly and administer medicine instantly. And so he just began to play around with some medicine and came up with a cocktail he thought would work. And so, like I said, I wake up Monday. He starts that on Friday. I wake up Monday. I'm over 40 pounds less. I remember looking down at my feet, and they were so bloated before. I couldn't see any structure of my bones or anything. And I remember that was the first thing I was looking at. Man, I can see my feet again, And so I knew stuff was turning around. They weren't, thinking I'm going home. I mean, it's desperate in their mind. But I knew my body was starting to recover. They put a defibrillator in on Tuesday. And, life-saving device. They said, we're going to put this in to keep you alive if things go wrong. But to try to speed this up a little bit, by the end of that first week, my heart rate had come down to just around 100. Everybody's getting, excited about that. And, so was I, obviously. And, but I'm now pacing the halls, dragging my IV pole around. I was bored to death, and I'm feeling very alive, and I hadn't felt that way in months. And then by the end of the second week, my heart rate's down to 665. I'm feeling just incredible. And they said, as they evaluated me, they said, we can't really justify keeping you anymore. Your heart is extremely damaged, but we need to let you go home and just monitor you and see what's going to happen. And but you're going to need a heart transplant at some point. And so they released me in September of 2005 and told me to just go home and live. And so I did get into cardiac rehab. They were, I was coming in 3 times a week there at the hospital, but I was doing fantastic. I remember walking into the first appointment and the team that was going to work with me were shocked that I was mobile, and because the paperwork was so ugly. And that's what they said. We did not expect you to be this person we have on paper. So I say all that because I was not in the same trouble I was just a couple weeks ago. I mean, I was desperate. So getting on the treadmill, doing the things that, everything they challenged me with, I was able to get through it easily. And so after about 6 months, so in February of, not 6 months, whatever that timeline is, but in February of 2006, they said, look, you're not on any kind of list, but you will at some point need heart transplant. Your heart is extremely damaged, but you're doing great. So go live and tell them. So that began turning, obviously I'm waking up, starting to think of life differently. And we moved from New York to South Carolina, that in 2006. And I'm living probably better than I felt better than I had felt in years, actually. I was very overweight and all kinds of things, unhealthy anyway, before that. And so I'm living, I got into sports and, I'm physically active, started my garage door company, was pastoring the church. Things are just great. And that continues. And then we moved to Texas in 2011 and moved my garage door business to Texas. They ended up starting a attic efficiency company, continued pastoring, I'm just going, right? Kids are both married now. Grandkids are coming. Life is good. And it's hard to believe I'm still seeing a cardiologist every 6 months. Nothing has changed. My EF was still in the, under, it's like around 25. Everything on paper still says I'm in trouble, but I'm living good and living just a great regular life, fully active. And so, speed this up, story up a little bit here. Finally, in 2019, October of 19, I am driving from one job to the next, and I feel like I'm going to pass out. Just get this, that sense where you're like, oh, I'm getting ready to pass out. So I was on a 4-lane road to each direction, and I was on the inside lane, and my thought was, I need to get over and pull over and deal with whatever this is, and then figure it out. Well, that's the last I remember with that. And when I woke up, I was buried into a living room, drove my truck, crashed right into an apartment complex and buried my truck into the living room. I had tachycardia. And I had that defibrillator that had never fired in all these years. I had it changed in 2014 because the battery went dead. It didn't pace. It didn't do anything. But on that day, it fired, and it actually saved my life. And so, I was the cardiologist, and everyone get involved at that point. It was like, this might be a sign that we're at that point in life. And of course, I agree. This is pretty bad, right? But they get me change my medicines a little bit, get me back on track. I go back to work, within a week, and living good again for 2 years. There was no signs. Of course, they took my license away for 6 months because I passed out while driving, so they don't want me on the road. But everyone was monitoring me, and there was just no other things happening, and still active, very active. And so 2 more years go by, and then January 22, I knew, I could tell this is really it. A lot of details to this, but didn't have insurance at the time, so I was hiding it from my bigs. I'm like, what am I going to do? What do I do? Tell my wife, tell everyone, and so what? What's the answer? And so that's kind of how I went into it. But I was deteriorating fast again. My wife, of course, quickly realized, hey, what's going on with you? And so I couldn't hide it anymore. And of course, told my kids, and everybody's getting involved. And it was at the point that I was still going into work every day, doing the best I could, but dragging, and literally would tell my wife, we said our goodbyes in the morning, but we knew that there was a little more to it than just your typical go to work goodbye. This could be the last one. Every day was faced like that. And then finally I end up in the hospital, still no insurance, get my weight off again, same type of thing, swelling, and send me home a couple times. They really can't, with no insurance, they're really restricted on what they're able to do. And so they'd get me kind of fixed up, send me back home, then go a week and, back in, because I couldn't make it. And finally I was on a job actually with my son. He was my business partner at the time. And I couldn't even get up my ladder. And he's like, that's it. You need to go deal with this and get off this job. You got to go figure this out. And, it's a hard moment, it's when your kids are realizing how bad it is. And so finally get admitted. Yeah, you need a heart. You're not going home without it. you're in real trouble, but still no insurance. So there's only so much they could do. And so I was scrambling, trying to come up with an answer. Of course, they're trying to find answers to grants, and everybody's trying to figure out a way for this. And it finally, I have a friend who, and I write about this even in my book. I have a book that's coming out on this whole story, and she sells insurance. Don't know why I hadn't really talked to her about it before. And I called her up from the hospital room, and she knows I'm in a desperate place, and what can we do? And so she says, let me get to work. And she ended up finding a program that just calls me back, probably within an hour or so. And so I've got you covered 100% with no pre-existing clause. And it can go into this on a Tuesday. It will go into effect on Monday. And she gave me the information. She said, do you want it? I'm like, of course I want it, And so she's okay, you're done. Will you be effective on Monday? And so I called the financial department of the hospital. Hey, I've got insurance. They're like, what do you mean? I tell them they are having a hard time believing that, and because everybody's been trying to figure this out. So I gave her my agent's number, my friend. I said, call, make sure I'm right. I'm just telling you, she said, I've got insurance. So then she called back sometime later, says, you're right. And things turned quick. I mean, they did some things that Fishy wasn't insured till Monday, but they started doing some things, that I guess they were able to post date that maybe that shouldn't be out in the public airways. But they began to do as much as they could to really start getting things ready. And then come Monday, when things went into full effect, put me on a balloon pump. They just totally, everything changed, right? So,
but from originally, when you were kind of diagnosed that first time, you went, sounds like 17, 18 years before?
17 years.
All right. And then
17 years on heart 1.1, 1.0. So that's a story all by itself, right? Because sometimes transplants don't even make 15 years, and I'd already beat those odds by keeping an old heart.
Mm-hmm.
So, they put me on the balloon pump, and then that, you might be familiar with it. I know you're a transplant as well, but for those who aren't, it really takes over the load of your heart. It stays in, it's 24 hours a day. You're walking around this little R2D2 machine, dragging behind you. But again, now I'm feeling fantastic. They want to, have you walk around, and at least once a day, they want you to walk the halls as a patient up there as you're waiting. And once they started that with me, I was blowing through laps and doing 2 laps on the first day, and then 3 laps on the second day. And the nurse even was commenting that, because I was like, man, I'm feeling great. And they're like, don't be fooled. The machine is what's doing this. You're not going home, because I was thinking, I'm ready, man. Let's get out of here. And I know this is the machine. But what happened was, on that third day, the joke kind of became where the nurses would start in a sweatshirt, but by the time we got to lap 2 and 3, they were, hold on, let me take my sweatshirt off. And because I wasn't just walking, I'm a fast walker. My pace has always been fast my whole life. And so I'm booking. And so I asked them on the third day, what's the record of laps in this hallway before transplant? And they actually had someone had said it years ago. It was 13 laps. And I said, okay, I'm going to break that before my transplant. That was set that goal for myself. And so every day tried to add a lap, sometimes 2. And I'm up to 12 laps and never made it past that, though, because it just things caught up. I wasn't able to do it. I actually started reversing a little bit and backing up on the laps. And in the middle of all this, so I should have said this earlier, but at the time I was 6'4", and that's a hard placement. It's a hard match. And they told me, because of my height, it's going to be hard to find a heart that will work. And the one thing that they had said to me that some people don't like to really think about, but 4th of July weekend is considered harvest weekend. And because there's just so much death involved with 4th of July partying, and especially when it falls on a genuine weekend, which that weekend it was on a Monday. So what that meant was from Friday to Monday is just party after party after party, and they said there's a good chance.
It's funny you say that because I was really in my worst place probably just around spring break, and they said, well, at least we're looking for your heart at an excellent time. And it's kind of scary to hear that, but yeah,
it is.
I hear the truth in it though. It's because it was during spring break when I got my heart.
Wow. Yeah. It's, it is for those of us who are receivers, obviously we're ecstatic, but it is kind of, it's one of those things you don't like to think about too much, how much death is involved, but it is what it is. And there's not enough, organs out there. So it's a good weekend. And that's hard for other people to understand, I think, sometimes. But so I get the call on the 4th of July. And like I said, I'd been struggling. I was not making my lap, wasn't breaking that record, but I got my call. And then by the end of the 5th of July, I was in 2.0, and here I am. I stayed in the hospital a total of 9 weeks. 2 weeks after transplant, had some complications, ended up on dialysis for about a week. I had 4 different rounds of dialysis. My kidneys didn't wake up after the anesthesia, and just some things like that. And my legs were hard for the first week. They're just jello, which no one really understands what causes that. I guess it's not uncommon. So I couldn't walk, on dialysis, a couple different things like that. And kept me in the hospital for a little longer than they normally would keep you. But I finally got released and been living fast and furious again since. It's a good life.
That is good to hear. And so really after your first complications, then you've been, I know us transplant people, and that's what I call us, I guess. But, there's always these little bumps along the road. But as long as you can keep them to a minimum, you're doing okay.
Right. It's definitely you got to be very aware of what's going on. You got to know your body. You got to pay attention, take all your meds, do everything you're told to do. It is a new lifestyle, but the word life is in that. And I would not trade it for the world, it's not to get too, I don't want to expose anything, obviously. I belong to 7 different transplant groups, and there's some people that struggle with the decision to do a transplant because it's such a hard life. I understand it totally. It's not easy. We're called transplant warriors for a reason, and people really don't understand that side of it when you're not in it. Even our caretakers really don't understand what it really takes to keep going. And you have to, though. You have to choose life every single day, and whatever restrictions come with it, whatever complications, bumps, downs and ups, and all that part of it, it's still life. And if I live 5 years with a transplant, 10 years, whatever it ends up being, I need to get to that day living my best life. And you when those moments come that disrupt the day or the week, sometimes when you get back in the hospital, and you can choose to stay stuck in that, or you can know that, okay, I'm going to get through this again. My team's going to figure it out, whatever that requires, more meds, less meds, change meds, whatever it is, it's going to get discovered, and you got to wait for that day and then go back home and keep going.
Now, I'm going to ask you this because I know you said earlier you'd pastored a few churches. Now, did this help you along the way, do you think, your beliefs and, being a pastor at one time, maybe counsel yourself, I guess?
Yes. Being a pastor, I started pastoring in 96, and I was in Sacramento, California when that started. And so I pastored through all the journey, was pastoring when I got my first diagnosis even. And It's in my book, I actually deal with faith and science and how they do go together. I trust God to, some people get really hung up on, if it's God, it's an instant boom, magical moment. And that's the only way that God does it. And if it doesn't happen that way, it's not God. I actually don't see it that way at all. I believe that God has given us an amazing ability as humans to figure stuff out, like medicine and transplant. And, you figure at some point, someone says, hey, I can take a heart from that guy and put over there in that guy, and it's going to work. That had to be discovered and figured out and made better. When you think about how little time really we've been doing heart transplants, it's not been that long in the grand scheme of things. And we're talking about titanium hearts now. We've gone from transplant human to human to making mechanical stuff that could totally revolutionize the whole, the whole field. So I think God's in it the whole time. If he wants to do it instant, if he wants to do it through medicine, if he, however he does it, I absolutely trust him through the whole journey. And people had a lot of weird opinions through the journey and a lot of interesting ideas on what God was or was not doing through it. And, I knew that God was involved. Never doubted that for a minute. Even when I left Albany, New York, the doctor that had taken over was absolutely not a believer in God in any way, shape, or form. And I remember our conversation as I'm leaving, and he's getting me ready and going to put all my papers together and transfer them to. Our conversation was, I thank you, and I thank God for what's happening. He didn't like that at all, and I get it. He's gone to school and he knows what he's doing, and it was his. He had a plan, and I understand he figured some stuff out. But I remember looking at him. I said, "You know what? I understand where you're coming from, but I know that God gave you the ability, whether you understand it or not, and God used you. That I'm leaving. I'm moving to a new state to take on a new life. When I was told just a few months ago that you're dying, and there's a miracle in that, and you're part of that." And I remember he just, it aggravated him to even consider sharing the glory, if you will, with God. But, it's as a pastor, even before my own health crisis, I always understood God to be so much bigger sometimes than we've allowed him to be in our minds and in our teaching and stuff. But man, he's so involved. And, he's not a puppeteer. He's not controlling. A lot of people think he's just absolutely in control of every little detail of our life. But if we'll pay attention, he's speaking and leading and giving us ideas, giving someone an idea to do a heart transplant. That didn't come from our own brain. That's an inspiration. It's just like an artist, and someone plays music. You can say you became a great musician, but somewhere in there is that creativity. We're created by a creative God, and we have that characteristic in us. And so if we pay attention, he'll use it in our day and in our life. So it definitely helped. It was my rock, and it was why I never gave up, as hard as it got and as scary as it got at times, because that doesn't mean it's just because okay, God's got this. It's easy to say that when you're knocking at death's door. That's scary, but I was also ready that if this is it, I had lived 17 years, like we talked about, from my first diagnosis, and I was thankful for that. And my family was, ready. Now, even though we all knew at some point this was going to happen, it doesn't make it. I'll tell you that when you get that, okay, here we are again, and it's real, and it's, you're admitted and you're not going home. I don't care how ready you thought you were coming in. You're not ready. It's still a big, punch in the gut. And so I don't want people to think that it was, it was all beautiful and glorious. And I mean, it was hard, and it still is hard. But I have to wake up every morning and choose life again today. I'll have to wake up again tomorrow and choose life again tomorrow. And that goes for all of us. I don't care what our situation is. Some of us have bigger stories than mine and less stories than but it's all our story. And it's the thing that we are all going through as humans. And so whatever that obstacle is in your life, those who are listening right now, you can move forward, and you will. You just have to get up and choose life again tomorrow, and then walk it out, and then get up again the next day and choose it again. And it may look so dark right now and so impassable, like this is not, there's no way, but time keeps going even in the middle of our stuff. And next year you look back to this day and you go, wow, look where I was then and what I am now. If you hang on, you just got to hang on.
Now, you mentioned this book. Is this book out, or are you in the process of writing it, or where are you?
I've written it. It's being edited, and cover design has been worked on, it like that. So it probably won't be. Maybe I'll have it out before the end of the year. Certainly beginning of the year. But it's called July 5th, the day I lived twice, and just really looking at the fact that kind of talking about the story to that moment. But this, the other reality is, as going through it, you really, when they do that last snip at the table, it's lights out. That new heart doesn't start. And so it is two lives in the same day. And that's kind of what I want to help people understand in the story. Talk about all the good stuff and the scary stuff and the funny stuff and the after stuff, a little bit in there. And try to also bring in some material into the book that dealing with the caretaker. And I think it's another thing that we don't pay enough attention to is our caretakers, those loved ones who are in the fight with us. It's easy when I was in the hospital, and it's the same with you. It's, we're being cared for 24 hours a day. It's easy to just kind of turn off, even if you wanted to. Our loved ones don't have that. They're going home. They're going to say goodbye to you and go home for the day and have to figure this out while they're alone. And they don't have someone popping in every hour, making sure they're okay and making sure they ate and all that stuff. And I didn't realize how much my wife was just worn down until I came home and realized, wow, And so I kind of talk about that in there too, and just the whole story. I want people to understand as best I can what it's really like.
All right. Well, sounds like it'd be a great book when it comes out, and we'll be looking forward to that. The title again is?
July 5, the day I lived twice.
Now, is that going to be like an Amazon self-published, or do you have a publisher?
I've written a lot of books and all self-published. Now I'm still kind of trying to figure that out for sure, how to navigate it, but probably self-published again. It's not the easiest thing to find a publisher. I am going to be doing something pretty unique on the audio version next year, and it's going to be done in a interview, conversational type of audiobook. That's going to be fun. So we got big plans for it. I'm not really sure all the details at the moment.
Okay. Well, that's interesting, and we'll be looking forward to that for sure. And probably some of our audience out there will be, kind of checking every once in a while. We're okay. Is it here? Maybe give us the heads up, and we'll at least get it out on the, the Gift of Life page, and let people know that you're working on it. Well, it sounds like
that'd be great.
Sounds like you have a great story and a great ending so far. And so appreciate that. Anything that maybe we skipped or we missed, or something you missed even, that you'd like to share before we let you go today?
I just want to maybe say one thing, since we're talking about the caretakers and stuff. Don't, as a loved one, as someone watching this, don't be afraid to say you're tired. You don't have to be superhuman. You don't have to hold it all together. Admit it that you need help, and take the time for yourself. Get out there and get that coffee break. Find a friend to go out and have dinner with. Well, don't be afraid of that. It's not wrong you still have to live. You still have to take care of the home, the bills, the dogs, that part of life is still going on. And take care of yourself. Get involved with some support groups if you can, things like that. But don't think you have to be the superhuman star of the moment and hold it all together, because you really, that's hard on you. And so take care of yourself.
Well, I know this, I've been pretty much on and off sickly and, went through all of my struggles. But my wife a few years ago was going through breast cancer, and I was going to the hospital and was there with her and by her side. And I just said, I do not like this side of the bed. I'm more used to your side. I want to go back there again. And I know that's weird, but that's what I was saying. I don't like this side of the bed.
There's so much. I'm sure I'd love to hear your story too, and its fullness. There's so much that we don't think about, but we need to. So,
all right. Well, I appreciate your time, and the best of luck to you in the future. And thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Wayne Adam Greer, thank you so much for sharing your story with the audience today. We much appreciate it. And be sure to join us next week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and also don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Reminder, my memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, isn't just a medical story. It's a survival story filled with humor, hope, and heart. It'll make you laugh, maybe cry, and definitely believe in second chances. Get it now on Amazon. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my former radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast. We have a lot of fun, and you can find it on the Podcast Playground Network. We want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now. Listen now.